There's like ancient versus modern.
Yes.
And they're kind of coming in like this.
As a societal level, we're trying to substitute spirituality with toxic habits.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what hedonism is. It's you're drinking salt water. So anyway, the ego.
I have no ego. Imagine that.
Yeah.
The irony.
We yearn for the sensation of the experience after death.
It's a barrier from uncovering, unlayering your true self.
Fiending.
Yeah.
The truth.
I don't want it to
Where is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Give it to me. The macro question of this was, what is spirituality? So where do you kind of sit now with your understanding of what spirituality is? Like what is that?
What is that?
What is that?
Still working it out, for sure. 2 years in, I think this requires a lifetime to understand.
Yeah, 100%.
I think spirituality is, to me, from my understanding and my experience through like knowledge and anecdotal empirical experience.
Yeah.
It's about tapping into the dimension which is beyond the psychological and physiological.
Yeah.
There's another dimension up here, we say, that can be accessed.
Yeah.
Which is what I'd say the enlightened people like Christ or Buddha or I don't know, in some cases like modern age Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah.
People like
100%.
that who have tapped into these higher realms or states of reality. And this is, to me, in my understanding, my research, it's somewhat it's uncovered in the West, seemingly, because I think psychology and spirit and the mind has been almost taken as, researching lower states of consciousness like depression, anxiety, bipolar.
Yeah.
Whereas I think in India it's like different levels of higher states of consciousness, which is why it's so good to hear a Westerner like Freud and Jung, and there's probably heaps of other philosophers that have like reached that, like Spinoza. Have you heard of him?
No.
Philosopher. Different philosophers. But anyways,
cool.
There's a higher state of consciousness, and I think from my experience, spirituality is definitely tapping into a realm which is non-physical, which is actually going to set you to liberation.
Yeah.
When I say liberation, people speak of heaven on earth.
Yeah.
Or the yogis call it mukti or moksha. Or samadhi.
Yeah, samadhi.
Nirvana in a Buddhist talk.
Yeah.
So to reach heaven on earth would be to be constantly situated in the self.
Yeah. And
constantly be living there. But again, I'm bringing in other stuff. But from my experience, I've had 2 years on this path. I've definitely had glimpses, I feel, of the self emerging. And I want to find out more about that.
Yeah.
And I'm thirsty for that knowledge. So that's where I'm sitting at the moment, and which is why I'm so like ravenous to understand and experience.
Fiending.
The truth. I don't want it to
Where is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Give it to me.
I don't want it to be merely theoretical or just a belief. I want to experience and realize.
Yeah. You want to realize ultimate truth.
Yeah, and ultimate oneness.
Would you say that you're genuinely pursuing that right now?
Yeah.
You're genuinely trying to pursue ultimate oneness?
Yeah.
With what? Yourself? God? The universe?
With the self, which is God. So every human is potentially divine.
Yeah.
And if we can uncover that divine nature, that God-like nature, we can like awaken to that, and that's actually very very possible for all humans. And there was a part in history 1,000 years ago where the whole of I'm talking about Indian society, that would be the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
To realize Brahman. To realize God.
Yeah.
That was much beyond material wealth or any sort of
highest value.
Yeah. So
100%. I agree.
Yeah. So after after hearing that knowledge, I'm like, damn. So I don't think this realm of reality, which Jung speaks about, which sages, rishis, seers, enlightened beings speak about, I don't think it's false.
Yeah.
I do think some people are born spiritually elevated, born liberated already, like Christ.
Yeah.
It's like, damn, he was born like that.
Yeah.
He's a spiritual giant. But I do think we can, what we can do for the meantime, for the like average people like us, we can instill ourselves with divine and spiritual qualities.
Yeah.
So that's my understanding of spirituality.
Try it yet.
And this self is beyond this human vessel. Which is which is like when I first had this awakening, I could see myself as an ego. Like, oh, look at you. You think you're this big man going to the gym.
Oh,
like,
tell me about it. God.
Like
so cringe.
I had glimpses. I wasn't situated
look
outside.
How cool I am.
Yeah, exactly. And I was
wow.
like I was actually shocked when I first realized, oh shit, this is the person you've built up. You were trying to be this character, and that's influenced by pop culture and the shows I was watching, the music videos I was watching. I was like, damn. I've actually been creating this person this whole time.
You become a construct of this
sociological. Yes, a product of the
culture.
Exactly.
Your environment.
And now I'm watching this.
Yeah.
And
that's the deconditioning, like the de-armoring. Of the ego.
Yeah. And the ego is still very much here. I can feel it. It's still there. Ego is something that wants to prove I am wealthy, I am successful. And you want people to know.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the ego.
Yeah. We've talked, and I think we've talked a lot about the ego in the past, and like trying to understand, unravel, delve in of what that is and its function and stuff like that. We've had some heated discussions about it, and I think that's it's like what's its function? And camera cut out. We're back. The ego. So anyway, the ego.
I have no ego. Imagine that.
Yeah.
The irony.
It's funny how we're talking about like ego and like what it is, and we're like, oh, how great are we at understanding this? And then the world just like it's like cuts us off, challenges the ego in that moment.
Yeah, synchronicity.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. So we've talked a lot about that, and what I was going to ask was kind of like in the vein or line of like understanding the spiritual dimension. Like you talk about finding the self and uncovering it and going deeper and whatnot. Is it like your understanding that the ego is the barrier to that? Like the ego is the, because my understanding of the ego in a nutshell is like the self that formulated as a construct of in the world to survive in the world as a survival function, as a survival mechanism. Right. So it's like, you form an identity of self. You become a self to exist within society kind of thing. Right. And there's certain defense mechanisms and stuff around that. But anyway, like, what's your understanding of like, if you're seeking the self, how the ego interacts with the pursuit of trying to seek the self, which is to seek God and oneness and truth?
Well, the relationship between the self and the ego. Yeah.
Or like, does the ego cause friction or barriers, or how do you deal with the ego in relation to speaking this or finding or seeking the oneness?
That's a good question. I think that the ego is a barrier to finding the self. And when I say the self, I mean finding love and compassion for all beings and seeing the self, the divinity, the love in all living beings, dogs, animals, cats, birds, plants, humans. Yeah. There's something in common with all that. Yeah. And that lives within you, right? And what the ego does, from my understanding, is that it sees yourself as this person who's conquering and this is my life and it's up to me to accumulate as much success, name and fame, wealth as possible. To then, I want people to know. Yeah. And the theory is, that takes you further and further away from your true essence, and it's a barrier from uncovering, unlayering your true self. Yeah, because I'd say most people don't actually know themselves properly. Yeah, true. Because we're born into this person. I'm born into this person, Tim Davey. You're born into Luke. We've been given these names. We didn't choose our face. We didn't choose our psychological structures. We didn't choose our personality. Well.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. I have some interesting thoughts about that. But
okay. Yeah. And this is the analogy I was going to use. Okay, so we are like, this is the process of union with God, or with union with the divine. Yeah. We are like a glass jar, right? We close the glass jar. The air in the jar is the same as the air outside. Yes. Meaning, God, transcendent nature, divinity, is within this jar, is within the individual, the jiva of the individual, and is also out. It's the same. It's one of the same. The bliss and love and divinity that's in me is also out in reality.
Yes, correct.
That's non-duality. There's no separation.
Yes.
Now, what happens with someone who's potentially reached samadhi or the highest
enlightenment,
crown chakra, enlightenment, is that jar has been dropped and shattered. Their boundaries have been completely obliterated. And shattered. I've certainly not reached that. However, I understand that is a process to take to achieve that, right? So once that gets shattered, that personhood dissolves. And you become less and less identified with this body and this mind because you've experienced oneness and true union with God. And then you've come back into the body and you might be sharing that message like Christ did or Buddha did. But how does that sit with you?
I was going to say, like, there's a Jim Carrey quote. Something, I think the quote is that we yearn for the experience, we yearn for the sensation of the experience after death. That we actually yearn for that feeling of selflessness. Like the alleviation of self. And that's what he sort of talked about.
Liberation from self.
Liberation from...
Well, not this self, but...
Well, that's what I mean. Like, this is where like semantics can come into a bit, right? Like your understanding of self is like the spirit and the soul within you.
Yes.
Whereas like I choose, and we've had this as well, where it's like I choose to call the self the soul.
Right.
That's the word that I use, but in the Vedic tradition, that's the self.
For me, the self is interchangeable with the soul.
Same thing. That's right. We've talked about that as well. So it's like the alleviation, for me, self kind of sits more, it depends on like the Jungian lens or whatever. Like self is the way that Jung put in the central part. Like he would refer to the self as in the Vedic sort of sense or the Hindu sense in that same vein. I just literally choose to call the word the soul. For whatever reason. So but the idea is that, yes, that in this confined and limited sense of our phenomenological experience, we experience suffering. And that was the Buddha's first noble truth, right?
Yes.
Suffering.
Like
you exist, you suffer. That was his first whole thing, right? And to alleviate that is to transcend attachment, to transcend the clinging, to transcend the yearning and the grabbing and the latching onto form. And like what you're saying, to experience formlessness.
Or emptiness.
Emptiness, It's an interesting way of putting it. Well, like in the glass jar sensation, it's the shattering of the glass, which is to become in the oneness and the wholeness, which healing, in the etymology of healing, it comes from wholeness. So to become whole and one and oneness, which I think is what we're all seeking. And I think that that what happens, or in this sort of like shadow archetypal or shadow manifestation of that, and what's happened in society without people consciously or cognizantly seeking spirituality and spiritual truth, is that they're finding other ways and means to substitute that. And that they're engaging with lower order means to attempt to escape oneness. If I had my phone on me, I would have shown up my phone right now and said that, but we're recording with the phone, so I can't actually do that. But you probably able to see this computer in this shot. That technology, what does technology do? What does TikTok do, for example? That we escape we escape reality. We for a fleeting moment, as you turn on your favorite TV show, that you become fully in immersion with, if it's an immersive experience, right? You know what I mean? Getting tongue tied. That you transcend the clinging. You transcend suffering, so to speak, because you're engaged deeply with an experience, and
because attachment is suffering.
And this is where flow state kind of comes in as well. That's like the delight element of that, which is that people experience higher order experiences of transcendence.
Higher order?
I would suggest that there's like sort of higher or lower order. That's how we'd frame it, but that puts up and down that connotations with it. You could probably say left or right, or it's on a continuum. It's more, anyway. But basically that you can transcend the self in healthier ways,
right,
or unhealthy ways,
right.
Like, you know what I mean? You can cling to heroin, for example, to transcend the self. And transcend the existential dilemma that you exist and that you are in form.
You escape yourself.
Which Irvin Yalom talks about that, the fact of life and the fact that you exist, and how do you escape the existential trap that you were incarnated, that you're here, that you're existing.
I've had that before.
And I've had a similar past in that in marijuana and addictions and things like that. That's like the ultimate form of clinging and attachment.
Yeah.
But what I think spirituality is, and why I think that, and this is a political and sociological statement, that there's so much clinging and yearning and attaching to things to transcend the self in lower order means.
Oh, wow. That's a great way to put it.
That makes total sense. That's just, so you know what I mean? Like that's backed by evidence according to Luke, right?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? But it's just like an idea.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that? Do you disagree with that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think, well, let's take narcotics and drug use. What people do when they get into drugs is they're trying to feel something greater than themselves.
Yeah.
And I would go further than that. I would go even further than that to say that they're trying to escape themselves. And then one step further is escape reality. Now, that, and then I guess the spiritual path is facing reality. Because spirituality, it's esoteric and abstract, but it also is reality. And what is life?
Yeah.
What is this? What how do I live the best 80 years I can?
Yeah.
When I say the best, peaceful, beautiful, whole. Complete. And not just airy-fairy terms like happiness, but actually
meaningful
and
embodied.
And like, it's like you hear people joking, like, you know, my ex-workmate was like, I want to do acid and then collapse into a bundle of tears of how beautiful life is. But that can happen without drugs.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
For sure.
Just appreciate. Just an appreciation of life. So I do think people are seeking similar things through different means.
Yes.
Through toxic means would be through drug use, through maybe in hookup culture.
Yeah.
Because hookup culture, you sort of escape yourself for a certain experience.
Alan Watts has got some interesting thoughts about that.
Right. And I think religions do speak to that, but I think the difference between religion and spirituality, I feel like spirituality is much more individual and it's a self-inquiry. Why am I addicted? Why am I addicted to the substance? Why am I constantly chasing sexual experiences that are fleeting, which don't actually give me everlasting happiness? I feel like this could be premature, but spirituality is the one thing on this face of the earth that can provide you with long-term, eternal fulfillment and happiness.
Yeah.
I would say so. Everything else is kind of fleeting. Yeah. You get a promotion. Great for a week. You feel elated for a week. You tell your friends. Yeah. Back to normal after 2 weeks.
Exactly.
New pair of shoes.
Yes.
New car.
Yeah.
New girlfriend. It feels great for the first 6 months. Honeymoon period.
But you're chasing like more egoic, three-dimensional means of contentment or seeking contentment from form outside of you.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with seeking a partner or seeking money or seeking success. I think we all are seeking success in our own ways, but to assume that it's going to provide long-lasting happiness and joy is actually, it's not. I don't believe that's true. It can certainly fulfill you. On an immediate sense, but there's a deeper dimension of life, which is spirituality.
The way that I've heard that explained is it's like you're absolutely thirsty and you're in the ocean, you drink ocean water. Right? Because
right.
It's salt water, so it actually dehydrates you.
Oh, shit.
It tricks you into thinking that you're getting hydrated, but it's actually
too real, bro.
Yeah, right? I love that way of that framing of
like
that.
Hedonism, maybe.
Exactly, and that's what hedonism is. It's you're drinking salt water. You think it's like it's water, sure, but
which is adding another layer to the ego.
Yeah, but it's like, you know, it's like I'm thirsty, I'll drink a Coke. That's actually making you more dehydrated.
Yeah,
it's tricking the brain into thinking that it's being satiated.
Yes,
but the truth is that it's not.
Yeah,
and the truth is always unveiled in the end.
Damn.
Yeah. So cautious of the time as well.
Yes.
In that we're coming
to the end of this.
We try to cap this to about sort of like the 45-ish, 50-minute mark.
Yeah.
And I guess what I'm understanding that in this process that this could go on for eons. Because there's so many things that have even come out of this that I'm just like, I want to go into that.
Yes. Time is a fallacy.
Or I've got an idea, and you don't need to know this, but I'll talk to you about this after when we finish this. Ha ha ha, you'll never know. So, to sum up and circle back around in everything because we've kind of gone, as our conversations do, into the nth degree of insanity, in a sense of, I'm dramatizing because I like to do that.
Yeah.
But they've gone really broad, abstract, eclectic.
Yeah.
Clearly, because we're dealing with such an abstract concept that we're trying to nail down and get some sort of form or construct or structure around us and form understanding, and to gain wisdom in that process of growth. What's come out of this conversation for you? Like, what's do you feel, for example, in the question of what is spirituality, that you've come any closer to understanding that, or are there more questions than what kind of?
No, definitely. As I'm speaking, I understand like how much of a seeker I am, how thirsty I am, but also how much I'm still yet to experience. I'm not an authority on this. That's what's coming out of my mouth. I'm listening to myself, and I'm also listening to myself quite full. Quite the analogy with the teacup getting TV.
That's good one.
I feel like I'm still on that. I've certainly had a buffet of spiritual knowledge, and I just need to because a lot of spirituality.
Filled cup.
My cup is full. It's overflowing. It's overflowing onto the floor. But the spiritual journey is about uncovering and unlayering and actually becoming more light and peaceful and free and joyful. So I can feel myself still trying to get out of that when I'm speaking, and also hearing your perspective on the psychological spirituality, and understanding how, as a societal level, we're trying to substitute spirituality with toxic habits. That makes a lot of sense, and I didn't think of that too much. So I like that. I like that new age lens.
Okay.
And you?
Cool.
Yeah.
It's been interesting. This has been an interesting experiment.
What have you learnt from this conversation?
I've learnt actually a spiritual truism of that you set the container and wait for God to emerge, basically. Like you create the container to conjure a transcendent experience, and it will come through. And in that, what I'm actually saying is that in this experience, there's been an element of transcendence or creation that's come out of it, which I've really enjoyed, just as an experiential phenomena. But in the conversation, to really, what's becoming very clear and evident is there's ancient versus modern, and they're kind of coming in like this within in the way that we converse, and and you've got this really great abstract, metaphorical, deep, traditionalist sense that's coming through, and then there's this other end of the spectrum of how we've tried to do that from our current understanding, and they're that real sense of it, and some good questions and topics have come out of the chat.
Definitely. I think there's a lot of overlap between our certain schools of thought.
Yes. And I feel a little bit more clearer, actually, I would say, is on understanding spirituality as a concept, just from the conversation as well.
So
it's just me personally.
Definitely. We can leave it there.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for checking us out. Checking this out, whatever this is, whatever it frames to be, or we bracket it to be. And hopefully we can create more of these. Hopefully you enjoy. If you do watch or check this out, please do let us know what you like, what you didn't like. Comment whatever we have, whichever platform we put this up on. And thanks for checking it out.
Let us know if you liked anything, or if you want to hear specific topics like the ego or the shadow self. And stuff like that. It was just society. So we'll talk about anything. Talk for hours.
That's it.
Thank you.
Namaste. Go well.